November 1923, Berlin. You walk into a bakery. The price board says 200 billion marks. Not 200, not 200,000, 200 billion for bread. The woman in front of you? She's got a wheelbarrow. Not for groceries, for cash, just to buy milk. You wait in line. 12 minutes. 12 minutes, that's all. And by the time you reach the counter, the baker crosses out the price, writes 250 billion. Your money lost 30% of its value while you stood there. This wasn't some dystopian movie. This was Germany, the Weimar Republic. Real people, real bread, real collapse. And here's the part that should terrify you. It keeps happening. Venezuela, 2018. 7 million bolivars for eggs. Eggs! Zimbabwe, 2008. You needed a $100 trillion banknote to ride the bus. Lebanon, 2023. The currency dropped 98% in 4 years. Doctors became, well, they became poor. Overnight. So here's what keeps me awake at 3 a.m. It's not whether your currency fails. Historically, it's when. The average fiat currency survives 27 years. The dollar in its current form? Around since 1971. Do that math and, yeah, sleep tight. The real question nobody wants to ask, when the rules of money get rewritten while you're sleeping, what actually holds value? I dug through a century of economic wreckage. Weimar, Venezuela, Lebanon, Zimbabwe. Financial forensics on dead currencies. Not theory, not speculation, historical fact. By the end of this, you'll know exactly which 5 assets survived when entire economies burned, and which ones vanished faster than your purchasing power in hyperinflation. Stay with me on this one. First, you need to understand something fundamental.
Currency collapse isn't random chaos. It follows a pattern. Mathematical. Predictable. Every single time. Stage 1. Government spends more than it collects. Sound familiar? Stage 2. They print money to cover the gap. Stage 3. The currency starts bleeding purchasing power. Stage 4. People scramble for alternatives. Stage 5. Boom! Complete collapse. The numbers are almost boring in their consistency. Weimar Germany went from 320 marks per dollar in mid-1922 to 4.2 trillion marks per dollar by November 1923. That's 98% gone in 18 months. Venezuela's bolivar, 10 per dollar, became over 1 million per dollar. 1 decade. Lebanon's pound fell from 1,500 per dollar to 89,000. 4 years. Same pattern, same stages, same ending. So what actually survived? Glad you asked. Number 1, the most obvious answer, and somehow the one most people still don't own. Precious metals. Gold, silver. The stuff governments can't print and central banks can't debase no matter how hard they try. Here's the brutal math that nobody explains properly. Weimar collapse. You held paper marks, you lost everything. 100%, total, complete wipeout. Done. You held gold? You maintained purchasing power. Entirely. An ounce of gold bought the same groceries before, during, and after the hyperinflation. The currency changed. Gold didn't. Zimbabwe. Mugabe's government printed the $100 trillion note. Anyone holding gold? Protected. Same story. Venezuela. Bolivars became toilet paper. Gold held value. And right now, Turkey. Late 2024 data shows gold deposit accounts at Turkish banks jumped from 1.36 trillion lira to 2.72 trillion lira. That's doubling in 3 months. Why? Because Turkish people see the pattern. Runaway inflation, currency debasement. They're running toward the only asset that survived every collapse in human history. Here's what gold critics never understand. Gold doesn't need to do anything. No earnings reports, no dividends, no quarterly calls. Its entire job is to not be debased. That's it. When fiat money supply explodes, the purchasing power of each unit implodes. Gold supply can't be magically expanded, so it becomes more valuable by default. During the 2008 crisis, gold crashed initially. Liquidity froze and everything fell hard. But once the dust settled, up 166% in less than 3 years. Silver did even better, 448%. The 1970 stagflation? Gold dropped almost 50% mid-decade, bottomed in 1976. Then, 440% surge over 3 years. Pattern recognition? Verified? Undeniable. The mechanism is simple. Precious metals are insurance against monetary system failure, not speculation, insurance. You hold them because they do nothing except preserve purchasing power when everything else burns. Number 2, foreign hard currencies. When your domestic money is dying, the escape hatch is holding someone else's stable money. Let me put you in Beirut, October 2019. You're a nurse, saved $50,000 over a decade of work. The Lebanese pound is pegged at 1,507 per dollar, has been since 1997, rock solid for 22 years. You trust it completely. Then the peg breaks. August 2019, black market hits 1,600. April 2020, 3,000. March 2021, 14,000. By 2025, official rate hits 89,000 per dollar. Your $50,000 in pound savings, now worth about $1,000.
You lost 98% of your purchasing power, while the number in your account stayed exactly the same. The cruelest magic trick in economics. But your colleague, another nurse, she kept her savings in US dollars, physical cash, outside the banking system. She maintained 100% of her purchasing power. Not because dollars are magic, could have been Swiss francs or euros, but because she held currency that wasn't actively dying. This pattern repeats everywhere. Zimbabwe dollarized itself before the government made it official. People just stopped using Zimbabwe dollars, started using US dollars. Bottom-up currency replacement. Ecuador did it in 2000, El Salvador in 2001. Panama's been dollarized since 1904. Venezuela right now. Venezuelans use dollars for anything major. The bolivar is technically legal tender. Technically. Argentina, you buy property in dollars, not pesos. Everyone knows this. Cambodia, ATMs literally dispense US dollars instead of the local currency. This isn't policy, it's survival instinct. When domestic currency fails, rational humans switch to stable foreign currency. Government mandates don't matter. People vote with their wallets. The lesson is crystal clear. Access to foreign currency during crisis equals complete protection. Lebanese person holding dollars maintained wealth. Lebanese person holding pounds lost 98%. That's not volatility. That's the difference between financial survival and annihilation. Number 3. This one's counterintuitive and separates people who understand currency collapse from those who don't. Productive equities. Stocks. Ownership in real companies with real assets. Here's what breaks people's brains.
Venezuela's stock market rose over 3,400% in 2024. The Caracas Stock Exchange surged from 2,082 points to over 6,000 in 9 trading days, January 2026. Individual stocks went absolutely parabolic. Mercantil Servicios, up 200%. CanTV, up 219%. Banesco Provincial, up 171%. Wait. The economy's collapsing and stocks are skyrocketing? That makes no sense. Wrong. It makes perfect sense once you understand what stocks actually are. A stock isn't paper. It's ownership in real things, factories, equipment, inventory, land. When currency collapses, the price of those assets rises to match inflation because the assets themselves haven't disappeared. The measuring stick got shorter. The buildings stay the same size. Imagine a Venezuelan factory worth $100 million in actual productive capacity.
Exchange rate goes from 10 bolivars per dollar to 30 bolivars per dollar. Stock price rises from 1 trillion bolivars to 3 trillion bolivars. The company didn't get more valuable. It just takes more worthless currency to represent the same real value. But here's the critical part most people miss entirely. Not all stocks survive equally. Only companies with revenue diversified away from the collapsing economy maintain real value. A company earning 100% in bolivars sees real profits crater, even as the stock price goes up, because they have to convert worthless bolivars back to dollars to buy foreign inputs. Flip it around. A company exporting 50% of production gets paid in dollars directly. Their bolivar costs decline in real terms. Dollar revenues stay stable. Real profitability actually improves during devaluation.
Research on the Latin American crisis of 1982, Mexico's peso crisis in 1994, Asia's meltdown in 1998 confirms this. Operations that could redirect sales from local markets to export markets survived, thrived. Other investments plummeted into negative territory. The key is export capability. Productive equities with international revenue aren't just survivors, they're beneficiaries of currency collapse. Domestic-only companies, they burn right alongside the currency. Quick pause here. If you're realizing that everything you thought about economic safety might be backwards, that subscribe button is right there. This is what we do on Money Never Learns, financial forensics. We study the autopsies so you spot the pattern before you become the next case study. Now, back to the assets that survive when money dies. Number 4. Consumables and barter goods. When the formal monetary system completely fails, economic activity doesn't stop. It reorganizes around different exchange methods. Post-World War II Germany, the Reichsmark was so worthless that people just abandoned it, started trading goods directly. Cigarettes, coal, potatoes. These became the new currency. Cigarettes especially became prominent. American soldiers bought them from army stores for pennies, traded them with Germans for goods worth exponentially more. Why cigarettes specifically? Standardized cartons, easily divisible, non-perishable, lightweight, widely accepted. They had all the properties of money except one. No government issued them. Black markets near train stations in German cities operated 24/7. Everything from railway tickets to forged documents, all priced in cigarettes.
Here's the economic proof this was real currency behavior. When large batches of Red Cross packages arrived at POW camps, sometimes hundreds of thousands of cigarettes hitting circulation at once, it caused inflation. Same mechanism as fiat money printing. More cigarettes chasing same goods equals higher prices. Venezuela 2018. As bolivars became worthless, Venezuelans went to direct barter. Fishermen traded their catch for flour just to feed their kids. What held value? Medical supplies, food, water, fuel, batteries, lighter fluid, basic tools, anything with immediate use or enabling essential functions. During supply chain disruptions, even toilet paper, soap, wet wipes became valuable. Not for comfort, for health. Staying clean prevents infection when systems are failing. But here's the limitation nobody mentions. Consumables get consumed. They can't serve as long-term wealth storage. You can't build a portfolio on aspirin and batteries. They're tactical, not strategic. Optimal allocation, small portion in physical necessities for immediate crisis exchange, but bulk of wealth in assets that don't disappear when used. Number 5. Agricultural land. The immobile store of value that produces the only thing humans cannot live without: food. During the Great Depression, farmers had survival advantages over city dwellers that were stark and undeniable. Gardens, canned fruit from orchards, milk from dairy cattle, chickens for meat and eggs. They could skip new clothing. Consumer goods could wait. But they faced one brutal constraint. They still needed cash for taxes and bank debts. This dynamic plays out in every modern collapse.
Venezuela. People owning agricultural land maintained ability to produce food regardless of what the currency did. People owning urban commercial real estate, their tenants couldn't pay rent in any meaningful terms. Land produces calories. Urban buildings produce rent denominated in dying currency. Calories win. But, and this is critical, agricultural land has severe vulnerabilities. First, utterly illiquid. You cannot move it. You cannot quickly sell it. If political circumstances turn dangerous, you're stuck. Zimbabwe 2000. Mugabe's land seizure program simply revoked commercial farmers' property rights by decree. Farms redistributed without compensation. Sophisticated agricultural operations destroyed. Output collapsed 60% over a decade. Farm values dropped 75% between 2000 and 2001 alone. Second vulnerability, taxation. Urban real estate owners in collapsing currencies get forced to sell at fractions of value just to raise cash for property taxes. Land cannot hide. Governments know exactly where it is and can tax it into oblivion. Third, agricultural land producing export crops beats land producing only for domestic consumption. Export crops sell for stable currency. Domestic crops sell in dying local currency. Strategy here is critical. Own land that's either 1. Productive and capable of generating export revenue, 2. Located outside the failing currency's jurisdiction, or 3. Held through corporate structure protecting against seizure and direct taxation. Agricultural land maintains fundamental value through food production capacity, but it's less liquid and more vulnerable to government interference than precious metals or portable equities. Now, let's flip this around.
What goes to zero? Because understanding failures matters just as much as knowing survivors. Number 1 with a bullet. Fixed income securities denominated in the collapsing currency. Bonds, treasury notes, anything where you're lending to a failing state. Weimar Germany. Bondholders holding government bonds in marks, their investment became worthless as the marks used for interest and principal payments evaporated into nothing. Argentina 2001, bondholders saw nominal value slashed 70% in debt restructuring. Even this reduced amount required years of legal battles to collect. The fundamental problem is inescapable. Fixed income securities are claims against the collapsing currency itself. Currency collapses, your claim becomes worthless. This isn't market failure. This is logical consequence. Number 2. Savings accounts in domestic currency held within failing banking systems. Lebanese deposits in pounds lost over 95% of value as the currency went from $1,500 per dollar to $89,000 per dollar by 2025. Bank customers who deposited in pounds in 2019 retained 2% of original purchasing power by 2024. The number in the account stayed identical. The value vanished. History couldn't be clearer. Being a creditor to a failing state is the fastest highway to 100% wealth destruction. So where are the warning signs flashing right now? Because pattern recognition only helps if you spot the setup before it executes. Iraq. Financial crisis from cash liquidity problems, over 70% of monetary supply restricted due to banking withdrawal limits. Dinar devalued from $11.90 per dollar to unofficial rates approaching $17.50. Public distrust of banks growing. Currency smuggling across borders. This is stage 3 behavior.
Turkey. Gold deposits more than doubled in 1 quarter. Citizens fleeing to precious metals. Runaway inflation. Currency debasement accelerating. This is stage 4 behavior. Currency substitution has begun. Lebanon. 98% currency collapse already executed. Banking system technically insolvent. This is stage 5. Complete failure. Already happened. And then, there's the elephant in the room. The United States. $38 trillion in debt. Debt to GDP expanding unsustainably. Interest payments on national debt now exceed military spending. The dollar's share of global reserves has fallen from 80% in the mid-1970s to 65% now. Same trajectory British sterling followed during its decline. 1913, Britain was the world's biggest creditor nation. Within 40 years, net dinner, dollar replaced sterling. The pattern is visible if you're willing to look. So, here's the brutal truth. Currency collapse isn't hypothetical. It's historical norm. Average fiat currency lasts 27 years. 99% of all currencies that ever existed don't exist anymore. The question isn't whether your currency fails. The question is whether you'll be positioned to survive when it does. 5 assets that survived every collapse since 1923. 1. Precious metals, universal store of value. 2. Foreign hard currencies, the escape valve. 3. Productive equities with export revenue, the devaluation beneficiaries. 4. Consumables and barter goods, tactical liquidity when systems freeze. 5. Agricultural land, the calorie generator. Assets that went to zero. 1. Fixed income in domestic currency, total wipeout. 2. Savings accounts in collapsing currency, purchasing power annihilation.
The lesson isn't to abandon all domestic assets. It's not to become a doomsday prepper burying gold in your backyard. The lesson is that genuine diversification requires holding different forms of value that respond differently to monetary system failure. Portfolio of only domestic equities? Catastrophic risk if that country collapses. Portfolio of only bonds and collapsing currency? Destroyed. Genuinely diversified portfolio includes precious metals as insurance, foreign currency exposure for currency-specific risk, productive equities with international revenue, real assets in stable jurisdictions. The warning signs in Iraq, Turkey, Lebanon prove currency crises remain very much alive. The dollar remains stable, but historical record provides abundant evidence the status cannot be guaranteed forever. The prudent approach isn't panic. It's recognizing the pattern and positioning accordingly. Sufficient diversification across asset classes and jurisdictions means no single failure scenario can wipe you out completely. History has all the answers. You just have to study the autopsies before you become the next case study. If this forensic analysis changed how you think about economic risk, subscribe button's right there. Drop a helicopter emoji in the comments if you're already positioning for what's coming. I read every single one. And remember, the pattern is mathematical, predictable. The only question is whether you'll see it before it arrives or end up standing in that bakery line wondering how bread costs 200 billion marks. And as usual, nobody ever learns.